Welcome everyone to another episode of Subscription E-commerce Live. We are getting kicked off right here, right now at 2 o'clock Eastern. I am super excited because we have Brandon Amoroso. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, I think it's technically Amoroso, but yeah, I say it both ways. So I don't
that
know
sounds
which.
meditative. Have you attempted to tackle my last name?
No.
Okay, it's Gattuso, but you have to think
Gattuso.
that you're in Italy and you have to think like Gattuso, which is how I learned to say it. It is my married name, and so I get to treat it like it is a challenge that I have overcome. So Brandon's here with us today. He is from a marketing agency that serves e-commerce customers, and they've recently been bought, right? You've been acquired by Drinks. So the name of the company is Electriq. He is the founder and president of Electriq, which is 40-person plus Shopify Retention-as-a-Service Agency that is now a drinks company. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how Electriq got started? What was the spark?
So I was just freelancing in and around the LA area for small makers and artisans who would have anywhere from 1 to 2 team members max, and they all had a Shopify store, but they didn't really have a strong grasp on what to do with it. They're really good at making whatever their particular product was, like a lot of air plants, art, more things in decorative and artistic nature were typically the clients that I was working with. And then from there, it just started to grow, started to get more familiar with the Shopify ecosystem, branched out into Klaviyo in particular about 2 years ago now. And that's when we really started to accelerate our growth and transition to retention as a service, versus when we first started, it was all just SEO and content. So that was, I think, quote unquote, technically started in the middle of 2018 was when I was freelancing, but graduated in May of 2019, which is when we were able to bring on our first full-time team member. And then the first year was sort of slow but steady growth. And then 2021 was really where things accelerated, and we grew from about 11 people to about 40 by the end of last year. And then now just continuing on as we were, but did get acquired in end of April by Drinks.
Okay, so I love that you transitioned into a retention-as-a-service agency, and the fact that we are talking about retention today, and that is where you saw big movement, right? Because we've had conversations with people like Joelle Goldman at Churnbuster, and the current economy and the way things are going, we've always heard this phrase, it's cheaper to keep a customer than to acquire a new one. And it kind of gets flipped around, I think, and people go, yeah, we should focus on retention. And then they just continue to funnel money into acquisition, right? They don't achieve a balance. Nobody's saying go put more into retention than you do into acquisition, but I think of it as get more out of what you put in to acquisition by focusing on retention and not just letting things kind of fall apart, which seems especially important for subscription businesses. So in terms of the market and seeing an increase in people who needed retention services, how did that play out? Were people beginning to come off of the 2020 pandemic, e-commerce is everything vibe into a but they could go to the brick and mortar store? How do we keep their attention? How did that play out?
Yeah, so I think the biggest driver, you had 3 factors and they all happened at the same time. So it made a lot of brands kind of freak out. One was that stores were opening again. Second were all the privacy updates. And then third is just how many net new e-commerce stores were started in 2019 and 2020. So competition had never been higher. So you had crazy competition. which was driving up ad prices. You had the privacy changes, which was making it less effective. And then you just had less consumers that were online versus the COVID spike. So all three of those things combined left a lot of brands looking at extremely high cost per acquisition through their traditional funnels, and left them looking for, where are we going to pick up this additional incremental revenue? And a lot of them had not necessarily been paying attention to, or had the time to pay attention to the retention side, because they were so busy worried about getting as many net new customers as they possibly could during that COVID spike. So we were always focused on email and SMS, but the sort of shift of positioning to retention as a service really came through that like demand that we were seeing from the merchants. And it was started early on, and it still is happening today, where people are coming to us and they're like, we really need help with a more robust retention strategy that expands beyond just email and SMS as well.
Excellent. Okay, so before we get into some of the talking points that we teased for this discussion, which I'm super excited about, I just want to remind everyone, this is our only promotional plug in the whole session. This is brought to you by ARPU. Subscription E-commerce Live is an ARPU content supported series. ARPU provides upcoming shipment notifications that increase AOV and LTV while reducing churn with 2-click upsells and delays. And that includes like custom messages based on subscription products or renewal counts, and now even Shopify tags. So you could essentially combine any of those that you wanted to and say, like, if this customer has been getting this product for 2 months, I want to give, and has this Shopify tag or any combination of those, I want to show them these 6 upsell products, give them this one for free or at a deep discount. You can adjust the discounts based on like the renewal, any of those factors. And so you can find out more at getarpu.com. We serve recharge payment merchants on Shopify and BigCommerce. Okay, we got that out of the way. Now, first topic that we kicked out there in terms of improving retention and increasing LTV is basically, why is it so critical to audit your subscription experience?
I think everybody should go through their own subscription experience and try to look at it as if you aren't somebody who's really attached to the brand. And that's difficult to do. And that's something that I try to do with Electriq as well. And why we like reiterated our homepage 85 times, because if you're super close to it, then there's certain things that you're like, oh, well, yeah, obviously that is what we meant, or this is what we do. But if you remove yourself from that attachment and try and think about it from somebody's shoes who has no idea what's going on or what the product is, that's really the best way to go about it. And so I would go through the subscription experience in terms of actually like that first order, and then stay as well for that second order, and maybe even bump it up. So just go into Recharge or whatever subscription tool you're using and push that order through. So you're not waiting 30 days, you're waiting like 2 days for order number 2 to hit, and just keep track of all the various touch points, all the areas of friction as well. You can aggregate some of this too through your customer service help desk, whether it's Gorgeous or whatever it may be, to see where those points of friction are. But then you'll start to notice patterns of where people are running into issues. And then that's when you can start to rectify that customer experience, because customer experience is what drives LTV more than anything. And so before like actually digging into the numbers and looking at when somebody cancels versus not, you just think about, how can I improve the customer experience? And LTV is naturally going to increase as a byproduct of that.
So should you go outside of your own team and attempt to get this feedback from existing customers or new people that you ask to go through this flow for you? Like, where do you stand on what level of research is required to get that fresh set of eyes, or that fresh, like, to the experience feeling versus the, I work for this brand, so I already know what that language means, and I think it's okay kind of thing?
I mean, not to be totally self-serving, but like for all the brands that we will potentially work with, we require that we do an audit before we even go into a proposal process, because we want to be the ones that are coming in from the outside looking in, going through that subscription order experience. And then we're able to pull in all of our experience with the 45 other clients that we have and all the other subscription programs that we've launched and are currently maintaining, and go through it thinking about, oh, maybe this thing that we did elsewhere could potentially work here. And that provides a lot of value, I think, to a brand, because you're getting both the expertise, but you're also getting this is somebody who has never purchased from this brand before, has no preconceived conceptions. And so that helps a lot. Or just ask somebody, I don't know, ask your friends, ask your family members, somebody who is actually going to give you a real and honest feedback. That totally works as well. They just won't know necessarily how to fix it, or like what tools they should be looking at to implement to help improve it.
Yes, you've just given me an idea. It's a new company I'm going to launch. It's called Secret Subscribers. It's more advanced than Secret Shoppers. They're secret subscribers, and they get paid to subscribe to things.
That sounds great.
I think it's a good idea.
I would totally do that.
Okay, we'll meet. We'll talk later and come up with our business plan. Okay, so audit, and I think also, like, to add to that, don't stop at auditing once you think everything's in place. Revisit that on like a quarterly or biannual or annual basis, and continue to look for ways to improve, and then potentially intentionally subscribe to other products so that you can compare, contrast against what other innovators are doing that you might be able to adopt or tweak. Like, what is the equivalent of this 6-month like giveaway that they do, or this language that they're using that we might be able to pick something up off of? Because I think anything can get stale, and everything needs to iterate at the pace of like culture or technology, right? If you have the ability to do a new thing that creates a better experience, always be learning if that's available, and thinking about how you might adapt it to your own experience.
Yeah, I mean, your subscription program is not something you can just set and forget. Otherwise, your subscribers will just leave. So it's definitely important to continue to test and iterate on that frequently. But at the same time, not just get like totally paralyzed by trying to make everything perfect. You need to be able to let some things go, ship it, see what happens, and iterate from there.
Yeah, I think my equivalent to that is that the brand is in relationship with the customer, just like the same way I might be in relationship with a friend or someone else. And every once in a while, they're going to send me something that is like unpunctuated or not quite polished. And unless it is glaring, I'm probably not going to like end my relationship with them. I'm just going to know they're working through that thing, right? So in other words, like, publish is probably better than perfect in this instance.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, so let's talk through some actions that merchants can take to improve that experience, and things that would directly impact retention and LTV. This is your zone. Hit us with the good stuff.
So you need to treat like your one-shot and subscription customers pretty differently. And there's unique ways you can go about making the retention experience seamless for both of them. Because there's a lot of customers who just don't want to be subscribed to a product, which is totally fine. But you need to still make it as easy for them as possible to replenish their past order or to continue to just purchase from you. And there's some tools that we'll utilize there, specifically when it comes to like one-shot orders in your replenishment flows, driving them to like a landing page that already has their past order pre-populated in cart. That's especially important when you have a large number of SKUs. And so you're really just going to drop somebody on the homepage and tell them to go figure out what you ordered last. That is really applicable for like skincare products, as well as anything that you can eat. Where it maybe isn't as applicable is on the clothing side of things, but you know size and you know other profile data on that customer that can make your retention flows more sophisticated. Keep driving them to product recommendations that are very specific based off of whatever they purchased before, as opposed to, again, just like dropping them on the homepage. And then for all of our one-shot customers, we'll take them to an order tracking page that talks a ton about the benefits of the subscription program. So like their order tracking widget is there and they can get this shipment update, but it's such a valuable piece of real estate that you're missing out on if you're just sending them to your standard Shopify order tracking landing pages, because there's no branding, no branded content. There's no opportunity for additional revenue. And roughly 15 to 20% of your website traffic is probably going to that order tracking page, because on average, a customer will check 4.6 times per order where their shipment is. So that's been a big unlock for us, is just moving transactional emails and texts into Klaviyo and Attentive, and then driving them to these custom order tracking pages. And then from there, you can get the one-shot customers into your subscription program. Because I think a lot of brands want subscription first, and I'll even see like the subscribe and save widget is pre-selected, or your quiz flow on your website only funnels into like a custom subscription program, which to me is just crazy, because I don't want to subscribe to a product that I've never even purchased before. And you're forcing me into it with a gated discount. I get like where they're coming from, because of the fact that you want more subscription customers, and sure, it'll make the metrics potentially look better. But I think you could have a much healthier long-term business if you're acquiring one-shot customers, but you have this robust retention flow in place that gets them into the subscription program. So that's one area. On the subscription side of things, I think the best way to improve LTV is to keep them out of the account portal as much as possible. The account portal, like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say like, I love logging into my account portal on Shopify for subscriptions. But you have tools like Recharge SMS or Quick Actions or ARPU, where you don't need to deal with going into the portal. You can just manage everything through clicking links and emails or replying to texts. And you can even skip, or hell, you can even cancel via text if you want to. And it just makes it such a seamless experience for the customer, being able to manage everything that way versus having to go into the portal. And we see time and time again, customers that take action via those quick action links or via the Recharge SMS, even if they're skipping an order, they're increasing their LTV. So we'll see typically like a 20 to 30% increase in LTV for customers who engage and interact with the SMS subscription management program versus those who do not. So keep them out of the portal, make it as simple as possible for them, and reduce the friction to manage that subscription. And then if you can
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then if you can do cool like content or things that aren't just percentage off or free shipping, things that actually add value to the subscription program as opposed to monetary, those are a really neat way to keep people around, build a little bit more community as well.
So what you reminded me of when you're talking about like keeping them out of the portal is my husband to this day still kind of likes to go into the bank. And I can't understand it. I think it's like an old school thing that he fondly remembers going into the bank with his dad. And he was super late to adopt like the banking app on the phone, right? Whereas I am like, why would I ever step foot in the bank? If I had to, I'd go through the drive-through, but I don't necessarily have to. I can just click some buttons on my phone, scan the check, and move on with my day, right? And so I am drawing this kind of metaphor between the portal and the going in to do something that is somewhat like antiquated and old school, because the portal exists and it is there for a reason and you can do all the things, but it is so much faster to pick up the little mini computer in your hand and click, and you're done kind of thing. So unless you romanticize like going on the site and clicking through and like making all of these choices, if you could do that in like way less friction, that's my choice every time.
Yeah. I will say what is annoying though is if it doesn't work. And so, or there's certain brands that won't allow you to cancel via text. They force you to call in. Like, well, you're going to let me do everything else via text, but you're not going to let me cancel. I mean, that is where I think you maybe should rethink that strategy, or at least A/B test it to see. But I mean, ultimately, if you focus on customer experience first and foremost, it's going to prove out in the long run.
Yeah, I think the cancellation thing, my stance is that I have had pleasant cancellation experiences that then influenced me when someone asked me about my experience with that brand, for me to say like, it was great, I no longer needed it, but I highly recommend it. And it was so easy to cancel it, like that showed me that I was valued in a way, right? My time is valuable.
Doesn't completely burn the bridge either.
Yeah.
So
yeah, nobody likes being on hold.
There's ways you can keep people around even if they cancel from a subscription. But I think so many people think that's not the case, because most of the time you're canceling and it's just a horrible process, or like you just weren't able to manage your subscription in a seamless way. So it got to that point. But if you just keep things simple and allow people to manage their order, then you can set up some retention flows that will get them to come back as like a one-shot customer. We have one company that actually, if you cancel your subscription and you don't reactivate it, you get put into like a special little club where you're still only a one-shot customer, or you're now a one-shot customer, but you're still getting the same discount that you would have gotten if you were an active subscriber. So like that's the last sort of ditch retention effort. Like, sure, you cancel your subscription, it's been 2 weeks, you haven't reactivated it yet. Like, are you interested in joining this pseudo club where there's no commitment whatsoever, but you still get the same benefits of the subscription program? Which I thought was a super interesting way to go about it.
Yeah. So that's almost like reward for ever having been subscribed.
Yeah.
In the first place, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's where memberships could start to get interesting too. Like if you pay for a membership to something, then you get the same perks as if you were a subscription customer. I think there's some applications there as well.
Cool. Yeah, we're working on a blog article that I had some fun with the other day, because it's like alternatives to subscribe and save. And so we were coming up with like subscribe and this, subscribe and that. And so some of them were fun because it was like subscribe and connect, subscribe and, like get lots of perks, subscribe and this, right? So I'm kind of excited about how that ends up turning out in terms of ways that you can build that subscriber brand relationship that go beyond the discount that may or may not compete with another brand that puts out the same exact product at the same exact discount, right? Like how are you winning them? Any other retention or LTV tactics that can like get you immediate results? Like, what would be the first thing you would tell a brand to do after they've done their audit and maybe you've found that maybe I should back up. What's like a common mistake that you find in that audit process? And then what is your advice usually, without like giving away your proprietary information?
I mean, I don't really know I don't know if it's a mistake. Well, I guess I will say one thing that is a mistake, and I see a lot of it. There will be flows in Klaviyo, and you're not separating out like active subscribers and just customers. So you'll have a replenishment flow and a win back flow that all of your customers are getting entered into. And let's say the time delay is like 45 days, but you're not excluding active subscription customers. And so your active subscribers could be on a 3-month cadence or something. So they're still getting all these replenishment emails, but I'm a subscriber. So like, what am I replenishing? I've seen that far too often. So that would actually be a mistake. I would say that you should make sure you're not doing that.
I always say that one perk of being a subscriber should be that I get less emails from you. Like I get important emails from you, but I don't get
Yes.
bombarded. Like you do not do things that border on spamming to me because I have paid for that privilege.
Right.
That's how I see it in my seat. So you would see that as a thing that they're just not paying attention to. Like it's basically not keeping their flows clean and who's on what list
Yeah, I mean,
excluded.
there's a lot of those little things that we'll see in flows where it's maybe not obvious when you're setting it up, but when we're doing these all the time, it's like sort of table stakes. We obviously want to exclude a subscription customer from a customer win back flow because they are still a customer. They just haven't gotten to their next order date yet. So there's little things like that. I'd say none of these are mistakes necessarily, but there's so many accounts, most of them, frankly, that we go into and they have a placed order flow and that's it. Like there's nothing for order number 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. And then I'll like segment out their account to show them how many people there actually are within these cohorts. And there'll be thousands of customers who have ordered like 10 or more times. And there's no communication strategy for them whatsoever. There's no communication to them that, hey, like you actually are this important. And there's just a ton of missed opportunity there for increasing LTV and then turning those customers into your advocates as well. So I say that's a big one, is just having a very, very basic like post-purchase flow and not necessarily thinking through that side of things. And you can start simple too, like from order number 1 to order number 2. Think about how you would want to personalize your emails and texts to get somebody to place order number 2. And then once you know what personalization would be relevant, like let's say it's skincare, and if you know this person has dry skin or acne, like you're going to send them down a certain path for the second order. Think about whether that's from first party data or zero party data. If it's from zero party data, how do you get it? Is it through like a quiz that goes into the first purchase? Is it through a post-purchase survey via like an Enquire Labs that you then pass over into Klaviyo for segmentation? And then maybe it's first party data, just based off of what they've ordered. Now this is the natural path to order number 2. Those are some pretty like low-hanging fruit there to increase that repurchase rate, because order number 1 to order number 2 is always the biggest drop off. So focusing on that just makes all the other metrics sort of trickle down, look better.
So here's an interesting thing that I like challenging my brain to think about. And that is the fact that I think, especially within ARPU, when we're saying like, hey, you can customize the message so that on renewal 1, they get this message, on renewal 2, they get this. But chances are they might have been a repeat customer before they were a subscription customer, right? And we think a lot, I think Eli and I talked about this a bit, about thinking of subscription as a journey. But sometimes the customer journey starts before the subscription journey, right? And so I suppose you could use Shopify tags and some special segmentation to get this to work right, but it's not always necessarily on renewal 2 that you're going like, hey, you've had 2 months of this in your system. Are you feeling this way? Are you doing this thing? And so if you wanted to take it to the dangerous place that my head takes it to, because I like thinking like of a really customized, personalized feeling, highly relevant message coming across to me as a subscriber, if I'm in that seat, it would be like knowing how many times I had purchased before I subscribed. And so when I'm getting my upcoming charge order, the messaging in there isn't like, hey, this is your 3rd renewal. And it's more like something that someone who's getting it their 10th time should be reading. So it's a dangerous zone because I could make like 50 different branches of a journey with that. And so I think you would have to like go from what's the Taj Mahal version of this to like what is sustainable within this, right? But I do think that like
I think no communication is better than bad communication. So like maybe you just stop after the 3rd order for the time being. and you don't have something for order number 4. And that's fine. It's better than just getting the same generic email every single time. Like, it's just a waste of a touch point with that customer. So why even bother with it if you're not going to utilize it effectively? So,
yeah, like make it feel highly relevant for that moment in time for that subscriber.
Yeah.
I think that the more subscription culture advances and grows, the more subscribers will expect that kind of messaging versus very fact-oriented messaging that feels like stale by the time they've gotten the 6th renewal, and it's the same verbiage and the same thing every time, right? So any other tactics, or can we go into like what brands get wrong with loyalty programs?
I mean, there's like 1,000 tactics and little things here and there for increasing retention and LTV. I guess the only other one that I think is super low hanging fruit for all brands is just putting a post-purchase offer up. It's very simple, like one click, add to your previous order, and then that is free revenue, basically, is how I look at it. Because I typically see 10 to 12% of customers will actually say yes to that upsell offer. And let's say the order was $70, well, now it's $100. And so you just bumped your AOV pretty substantially on an order that was already going out the door. The order's already been placed, so there's no risk of them even potentially not placing that order, like if there is, I guess, theoretically, if you're upselling them throughout the checkout process. So no brainer to add that for every single store. And you can get creative too. Like, we've done bundled kits before. So like it's $300 because there's like 15 different items, and then, but it's discounted by 30%. And then it helps improve product discovery. And then just obviously increases LTV immediately because you're getting a higher value on that order.
Excellent. I was muted. So if anyone thinks that was a dramatic pause on my end, it wasn't. That was just me thinking that through. I feel like that is territory that we get into with one of our tech partners, Rebuy, who like they're great at like making sure you're getting the most of that one-time order by suggesting what else they might want to buy based on an algorithm that like feeds like to the customer the product recommendation that most people would like to buy if they bought that. They might like this.
I think we use Rebuy for every brand that we work with, because they've got like the smart cart that has all the product upsells, the ability to upgrade to subscribe and save, and you can plug upsells into checkout, and you can plug them into that post-purchase like pop-up, the one-click add to your existing order. And then we also use them in those order tracking pages for one-shot customers. They're dynamic product recommendations to help improve the likelihood that they're going to come back and make that second purchase.
Super side promotional note, you can also plug them into your ARPU message.
You can? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. You can just sync with Rebuy, and then it puts the products that you should be offering in there. It's really cool. We like it. We loved teaming up with them at ChargeX for a fun event. Okay, so loyalty. What are people doing wrong? I heard you talking with Chase at Recharge. Yes, loyalty programs. Like it feels like everyone's trying, but that all we're getting is a bunch of like points that don't mean much, and we want them to mean things.
Yes.
So
well,
what do we do?
I mean, most brands just shouldn't even have a loyalty program, in my opinion, because I don't know how many sites I've gone to that just have that widget in the bottom left corner, and like that's it. And somehow there's a thought that people are actually going to click on it and engage with it and understand what the hell it means and utilize it. It just doesn't work. So we tend to shy away from using them at all. whatsoever, because points-based, I think, is fundamentally too much friction. Especially when you're a subscription customer, because if it's points-based, you're a subscription customer, you now have to go back into that portal. Like you got to go log into your member dashboard. You got to find, okay, I've got 1,000 points. Is that worth $1? Is it worth 100? Who knows? Now we have to redeem it for like a code that I'm going to then go plug into my subscription account, but I forgot my passwords. Now I have to deal with that. Like there's so much friction in that customer experience that we typically shy away from anything points-based. What I like to do is base it off of just order number or base it off of LTV, and you can have various tiers. I mean, you see it with app companies like Uber, where you're like gold, platinum, diamond, elite, or whatever it is. You have various perks that just automatically happen. And me as an Uber customer, I don't have to do anything. Like it just happens. So all I have to do is continue to be a good customer and just keep using the app, which in the case of the Shopify brands that we work with, just keep purchasing from us, and then we'll reward you, and you get some of that surprise and delight aspect back as well. So like, oh, look, with order number 5, I got this really cool item, or look, now I get free shipping for life because I've surpassed $250 in spend. All of that just happens in the background though. There's nothing on the consumer to have to go and do, which has been performing significantly better for us versus any other path. And if you have like a single hero product that is subscribable, sort of like any supplement company or skincare, where it's maybe like one particular item that you subscribe to on a regular basis, you can create a program just for that based off of orders. So like maybe order number 6 ships completely free. And then whenever you figure out what those tiers, what that is going to be, communicate it throughout the entire purchasing process for order number 1, as well as each follow-up touch point out of Klaviyo or Attentive. Order number 2, okay, great. Look, I don't know, look, John, here's how much you've spent thus far. Here's how far away you are from the next tier. And then when you get to that next tier, look at all the things that you're just automatically going to get access to. And so that immediately is incentivizing him to go and make a third purchase.
Nice. Yeah, we were talking, I think on LinkedIn, there's like some chatter about like basing discount off of LTV, right? So as they go tier to tier, you would then, on our end, you would go in ARPU and you would say like renewal this or Shopify tag based on customers spend, like total spend with our company or something. Mm-hmm. And then you would go like, okay, you now get a 50% discount because you hit this, or 50 is too much. I'm just throwing that out there to seem extreme. But I think ultimately that to me feels more meaningful than subscribe and save, right? It's almost like be loyal and get rewarded. Right. Which depending on, would you say that it's wise to build, like the same way you're saying, build a subscription landing page, spell it out. What are the perks of subscription, right? What, in terms of building out a loyalty page, are people going to need to include? Like, should you spell out every tier on that page, or is it more mysterious? Like, what works best?
I think you should test it. So you can have a landing page, just do like a 50-50 split. You got half the people going to one that shows the perks, and you have half the one that goes to one that is a little bit more mysterious. Like, hey, we're going to be rewarding you. We'll let you know about this as you go through your subscription journey. I'm one to lean towards showing everything up front, especially if you're offering like some really cool stuff in that first tier, and then it just gets better and better and better. Why not show it all up front in the beginning, and then make sure that in every email and text that goes to that person, they know sort of where they stand on their path towards whatever the various tiers are that you have set up. So that's typically the way that I would do it, is have that dedicated subscribe landing page, have all of the perks, values, and benefits laid out within there, and then make it very easy for them to actually go ahead and make that purchase. So you can always do things like build a box, which is on a lot of the subscription platforms now, to be able to sort of curate your own set of subscribable products. And you can even play around with what sort of discounting tier you get, depending on how many items you're adding to incentivize that higher AOV. And so that's typically how we're doing it, is that dedicated subscribe landing page.
Excellent. Okay, so I want to encourage questions because you're coming up on time. I've had one that occurred to me in this process, and it's retention related, but it's I'm continually thinking through what is the best subscriber experience, right? And when we're talking about mixing SMS and emails, I know that we got information from Recharge. They had pulled some data, and they figured out that their SMS users who also were using ARPU were performing at a higher level, which basically means they were sending SMS and email to communicate upcoming charge and the ability to change. And so from that moment, that has been prompting me to think, okay, well, what is the ideal subscriber experience in terms of if they are opted into SMS and they're on your email list? And in my mind, I imagine, probably do 5 or 6 days before the charge, the email, and then 3 days, the SMS. But I'm curious your take. I have my reasoning as to why I feel like the SMS is more urgent. So if they haven't taken an action with the email, then you send the SMS. But I also think you don't send the SMS if they went ahead and took an action from the email. So what do you think? Because I feel like it's something that we're going to have to kind of play around with and define.
Yeah,
as the ultimate experience.
I would do email first because it's less of a aggressive communication channel. And if somebody takes an action via that, they don't need a text, and then follow up with the text and have the text be a day before or maybe 2 days before. But we all know that you're going to receive that text and you're going to see it. So you should be able to take immediate action. Whereas with email, you do need a little bit more of a lead because some people don't check their email very frequently. And I would probably even do 2 emails, do a 7-day and a 4-day, and then go into a text.
To have it be an entire flow, email 1, 7 days, no action. Email 2, 5 days, no action. Email, message 3, text.
Yes.
Gosh, the vernacular here. 2 days before, prompting hey, you didn't act. Here's your last chance. Kind of as a sequence.
Yeah, I think that would be the best path.
Got it. Okay, well, I'm glad that I'm thinking in the right direction. I would love if you ever want to test that with some people. I think it would be really cool to run tests with that across different verticals and kind of start seeing what performs better for your dog food people versus your cosmetics people and things along those lines, and come out with a great report about that kind of stuff. But I always tend to go ahead.
I was just going to say the dog food one is always interesting. Just in general, any product where the end consumer isn't the one purchasing it. So in this case, it's a dog, but in other cases, it's parents who are purchasing for their kids. We work with Florence by Mills, and 95% of their end users are teenage girls for the most part, or younger. And then you have purchasers though who are 80 years old, grandparents coming to purchase for the holidays or whatever it may be. So there's a whole rabbit hole that you can go down of how do you do a retention strategy there, because the person whose email you're getting and actually purchasing is not the one that you want to be communicating with. And so we'll have a large list of people who, if you looked at Klaviyo, it'd be these people that are worthless. They just open and click on our emails and texts, but they haven't purchased in a year and a half. That's because they're, 13. They don't have a credit card. So how do you communicate with the people who are actually making the purchase? So there's sort of fun different in unique circumstances where things aren't as black and white as they typically are with like a, I don't know, a coffee brand. Retention for coffee, very straightforward. Retention for that use case I was using, not as straightforward.
Yeah. I'm inspired by like if you have like an elderly person or just even parents buying for children, we ran into a situation that it was very smart of Amazon several years ago. And I think we've moved since then and they haven't figured out, but they should have because we still order from them. So maybe they still do. And I just missed it last year for some reason, but they would send like the toy catalog, which I, as a child, got the like Sears, I think, or the Toys R Us, one of those catalogs. And I would circle everything I wanted, but they put it together in this like super smart way that it had like a spot in there for a list. And the child could like tear that out and fill it out. And like, they just got very smart with like hoping your kid sees this in the mail and then makes their Christmas list. And then you're like scanning like URL, whatever QR codes, going directly to the product and clicking purchase. But I think maybe the route is when you cannot email the end user, if the parent or the elderly person is shipping it to their address, is when you would send something like maybe direct mail that is getting a deal or a thing, or, you know, like building up the fear of missing out with the end user, like the child who wants the product, who is then like, here, mama, here, granny, like, this is what I want, kind of thing. So you could probably go in some creative directions with that. I got a letter in the mail from a newsletter subscriber who has been subscribed for like a year and a half. And we go back and forth because she'll thank me for content or this or that. And she finally asked me for my mailing address. And she sent me like a personal card with like a really great note in it, just thanking me and making me feel like amazing. And I'm like, oh, these are the things that we're getting so digital that we forget we can do.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some really interesting direct mail applications. You have to be of a certain size for it to like make economical sense, but really powerful way to win back customers and have that be a part of your retention strategy is to start to leverage direct mail again, because other alternative forms of media are starting to come back a little bit as all the complications and updates that have happened with the traditional like direct response Facebook advertising.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any further questions. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. People are shy today, and that's okay. Sometimes they'll follow up in an email. Apparently, I solicit lots of email responses for some reason. But if they have follow-up questions, where would they find you online if they wanted to go engage with you?
So you could go to electriqmarketing.com, just a Q instead of a C in Electriq. You also go to brandonamoroso.com and you can reach out to me directly there, or look me up on LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever preferred social media channel you enjoy. Happy to chat about any of this. For some reason, I find it very interesting. And so you can pick my brain about this whenever.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This will go out on YouTube on Friday of this week and out also to your favorite podcast player. So if you're a listener, you can go catch it there. A reminder that if you are on our email list because you're registered for this Zoom, or you go to the ARPU website and go to live series and subscribe there, you will be able to see the chapters from the YouTube recording, and that will help you navigate right to like some major point that you're hoping to get information about if you'd like to. So we love looking at that data from our email client so that we can see which talking points actually resonated or were like exciting to people as we continue to attempt to come up with content that is highly valuable for the recharge merchant who runs subscriptions. All right, that's a wrap. We will see you all in 2 weeks. I don't have a speaker lined up for July 13th, so I'm going to take it on myself. We did this a while back and it actually turned out to be good, and it's a great challenge to me. We're going to be talking about a little something we like to call the delay retention rate, which is something that ARPU is about to be surfacing in your dashboard if you're an ARPU customer, but it's essentially the percentage of successful charges after delays. So you want to be looking at, are only 40% of people having a successful charge after delays? And how can we grow that to 60%? Or how can we grow that to 80%? We're also going to be like surfacing what are your most delayed products, and maybe what are your most delayed subscriptions? Like if you have something that's more like a 3-month cadence versus a 1 month, et cetera. So we are going to break down what a delay retention rate is and why it matters, and how some customers have like found the power of delays that much more powerful by being able to understand that metric and to implement like really easy delays instead of burying it, actually making it prominent and going ahead with like a 2-click process instead of sending them to the dreaded portal. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll see you in 2 weeks.